Want to talk about Santa Claus? Big, fat, jolly man who comes down your chimney and leaves you gifts? Who has all these godlike qualities. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sake. Because Santa Claus is watching. He'll get you. Be good because he'll bring you presents. Absolutely. It's not for goodness sake. It's for stuff. Yeah. Often it is assumed that our notions of Santa Claus came down to us because of a kindly saint who gave gifts to children. But traditions of a God who gave gifts under an evergreen tree far predate Saint Nicholas, who was the saint of Asia Minor, and it predates him by thousands of years. Among the Scandinavians, it was the god Odin, or Woden, who left special gifts during the Yuletide season under an evergreen tree, which was his sacred tree. So who is this Odin or Woden? He was the chief god of Norse mythology, and he was a fierce fighter who carried a spear as his special weapon, and he was renowned as a mighty hunter like Nimrod for his magical powers. Odin was another name for Nimrod, except that Odin could, catch this, fly. So he could bring gifts to all the children under his sacred fir tree. This is interesting. This next piece is written by a rabbi who was wise enough to look at the history and write about it. Rabbi, I hope I say this, Yeshaya Halkaiser. The rabbi writes, even Santa Claus, the most popular symbol of Christmas in the United States, has a pagan origin. Some of Santa Claus's characteristics date back many centuries. For example, the belief that Santa enters the house through a chimney developed from an old Nordic legend. The Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to the home. But the most significant symbolism in this myth is that children are taught through it that he has many characteristics that only God actually has, like omniscience, knowing all. He knows when you've been bad or good. Omnipresence, being able to cover the whole world with gift giving in one night, etc. Satan also wanted to take God's place and to be like God. Santa Claus, as I call this myth, is a substitute for God and for the supposed, quote, reason for the season. Santa Claus stands identified as none other than the original arch-apostate Nimrod. His attributes hark back to ancient pagan worship. When children are asked, what did Santa Claus bring you this year? It is merely a modern twist of an old satanic counterfeit pagan religion. The winter solstice occurs on December 25th, and Saturnalia was kept from December 17th to the 24th, and on December 25th, Brumalia was the celebration of the rebirth of the sun god. This is called Mithraism. It was a continuation of the Baal worship of ancient days. It was present in Egypt and back in ancient Babylon. December 25th is the birthday of Tammuz, the son of Semiramis, and the rebirth of Nimrod. The ancient legend is that a green tree sprang up on Brumalia, with the stump symbolizing Nimrod or Baal, and the green tree is Tammuz. This festival is nothing more than witchcraft institutionalized in the church today as Christmas, and it is Baal worship. All of that written by a rabbi observing Christians keeping Christmas. The Legend of St. Nicholas by Dr. Paul E. Heaton. He writes, St. Nicholas, it is the Bishop Nicholas who is the patron saint of children. Patron means protector, defender, or father, or pater. Nicholas is from, by the way, what does the word saint mean? Sanctified. Exactly. In the Greek it is hagios. It is the same Greek word that is translated holy. Saint, holy, set aside for God's own use. This saint was a 4th century bishop of Myra who was supposedly a benevolent man who gave gifts to children, according to his legend. His birthday is December 6th, which is still celebrated as the Feast of St. Nicholas. And it is said that the English of New York corrupted the Dutch celebration and made it part of their traditional Christmas. The word Christmas comes from the Christe Masse, which is the Christ Mass, also called the Feast of the Nativity. This all eventually led to the changing of the bishop's name to Santa Claus, because saint in Spanish or Latin languages is Santa. You know that, right? If you go out to Los Angeles, you can see Santa Monica, Santa Maria, Saint Mary, Santa Maria. Santa means saint. Santa means holy. The real St. Nicholas was bishop of Asia Minor, the seaport city of Myra in the 4th century, and he attended the first great ecumenical council in Nicaea. He was the patron of sailors, of children, and of Russia, among others. Prior to being a bishop, this saint was, of course, a priest. He became a priest around the age of 19. Until about the 1800s, he, as Santa Claus, was portrayed as a tall, thin, stately man who wore bishop's robes and rode a white horse. Until 1809, when Washington Irving, 1783 to 1859, depicted him a bit differently in the book Knickerbocker's History of New York. In this poem, Irving represented him as a jolly man who wore a broadly brimmed hat and huge breeches and smoked a long pipe. He rode over the treetops in a wagon and filled children's stockings with presents. This portrayal of Santa Claus continued for more than 13 years, and then around 1822, a man named Clement Clark Moore, 1779 to 1863, an educator and an Episcopal clergyman, wrote the now famous poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." The original title of it was called A Visit from St. Nicholas. In this poem, he wrote about Santa Claus appearing as a stout, jolly man with twinkling eyes and a red nose and a red suit, trimmed with white fur, and he rides in a sleigh being pulled by reindeer. Professor John Lynch writes, his cult and the representation in art achieved its greatest popularity in the Middle Ages, and in England alone, more than 400 churches are now named after Santa Claus, St. Nicholas. Here's a picture that I printed out that I'll leave up here. Y'all can come look at it if you want. This is an original rendering of what Santa Claus looked like a night before Christmas, when suddenly he became a jolly fat man in a red suit. And a couple of the characteristics I want you to see immediately. This picture shows what Santa appeared like prior to the 1800s. Note that he's dressed in a red cape and that he appears to be a Catholic bishop, more than the jolly old elf that brings children presents. Notice all the missing white trim around the edge of his clothing and his hat, and also notice that he is wearing a gown underneath his robe. If compared to pictures of Nimrod in mythology, we find both have long beards and ornate dress. Nimrod either carries a tiny deer or has a spotted deerskin robe. In this picture, he has a small deer with him, the origin of the notion that he is pulled by reindeer when he comes to your house. He carries a tree branch in the other hand. Nimrod is also pictured often to have wings, giving him the power to fly through the air. And as you can see from this picture circa 1800s of Santa, of St. Nick, he's wearing Catholic robes as a cardinal in the church. That's who supposedly is coming into your house every week. And yet, it just astounds me that supposedly Protestant people who would say, we are Protestant, we're not Catholic, will take all of these things that the Catholic Church took from Babylonish mystery religion and imposed onto the birth of Christ, and the supposedly Protestant Church has embraced them all and said, oh, we're fine with that. And even call him Saint Nick. In the Netherlands and Germany, the Santa Claus figure often rode through the sky on a horse to deliver presents to children. He often wore a bishop's robes and was sometimes accompanied by Black Peter. Why do you think the common concept is that Santa leaves black coal? Some of Santa Claus' characteristics date back many centuries. For instance, the belief that Santa enters the house through the chimney developed from an old Norse legend. And the Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to your